Hey everybody, it's Rattles here, welcoming you to the conversations on the porch. And as always, I am accompanied by my faithful companion, Heidi, on the East Coast. And we have an interesting show today, I think. Been thinking about how people are sort of self-isolating into little pockets these days. People want to have safe spaces where they don't have to see anyone who doesn't look like them or talk to anybody that doesn't agree with them. And I'm not sure that they're doing themselves any favor because sometimes being open to something new or something different is really beneficial in ways you're never going to expect. And one of the fun examples of that is that my sister once asked me not to get her out of something because it was scary, but she asked to go with me to see some rattlesnakes because they were scary. And she wanted to learn more about them so they wouldn't be scary. And I think she got some interesting lessons out of that. So that's where we're going today. And maybe we'll start with letting her talk about the first time she met a rattlesnake.
Yeah, that was interesting. I had been listening to you for I'm not even sure how long, probably months, is my guess, talking about rescuing rattlesnakes and how rattlesnakes weren't dangerous. And from my perspective, rattlesnakes, of course, are dangerous. They're snakes, they rattle, they bite, they're venomous. And but the more that I listened to Rattles talking about it, the more intrigued I was. And she would go hiking specifically looking for rattlesnakes. And both of us were hobby photographers. And so I finally got up the guts, probably from her challenging me actually, to ask her to take me out specifically to show me how to locate rattlesnakes and how to behave around them. Is that kind of how you remember it?
Yeah, yeah. Yep. And I remember you specifically saying that you found them a little scary, and you wanted me to, so you wanted to experience them so that they wouldn't
Yeah.
be scary. It's like you understood that I wasn't afraid of them and you wanted to experience them with someone who knew what they were doing so that you would get past that.
Yeah, and I think I was probably avoiding my guess anyway, is that I had been avoiding particular hikes during particular times of year because rattlesnakes would be on them, and you were hiking on trails like that. So, yeah. And I remember, and I don't remember every single detail of the trip, but we went up uh, one of the local canyons and hiked up in there, and I remember you um, like sort of like putting up your hand or something to get me to stop. And there was a little tiny rattlesnake like right in front of us, and it was like tiny little baby rattlesnake. And then he kind of backed up and he curled up into this little tiny little pile. I think you call them cupcakes of rattlesnakes, but it's totally tiny. And he ran away. And that was one of my first lessons was in my head, rattlesnakes were aggressive. And I saw this tiny, cute little baby who ran away because he was afraid of us. And that was sort of this revelation is that, oh, they're just like anybody else. If you're, if it's a big thing and it's coming at you, they're going to run or hide, which is what that baby did. So, um, and another And I can remember, like, once we saw the first one, I started like tiptoeing, thinking I was going to be stepping on them. And by the end of it, I can remember, and I remember one, maybe you can help me on the details, but where I saw one before you did, and
Mhm.
then there was a second one, like in the same space, or maybe you saw one and I saw a different one. But I was so proud of myself when I actually located one before you saw it.
Yeah.
Um,
And I remember having a really big female. She was unusually big for a female on the way out of the canyon.
yeah.
And and I remember you talking later about that being a little bit of an epiphany because she was most of the ones we'd seen were youngish ones. They weren't that big, and she was a pretty big girl. And so she was the one you would have been afraid of if you were going to be afraid of one. And you saw that we had to be very careful because her inclination was also to run away, and we were able to kind of slowly keep her calm and take pictures. But I remember you speaking about her in particular because she was a big girl and might have been startling otherwise.
Yeah, and as I remember it, she was she was coming toward the road and we stopped. And then I think we must have gotten out of the car and she turned around to run away. And I remember like, don't run away, I need a picture. And so from the beginning of that trip where I was very nervous, watching my feet, um, afraid of what they would do, to the way out saying, come back, Rattlesnake, was
Mhm.
was a crazy shift in worldview for me. And that's not to say that I was ready to handle a rattlesnake, which eventually I did. Um, but it was enough of a world view changing experience that I was no longer afraid of them, that I could put them in sort of a container in my head that these are people that I need to respect them for who they are, but I know that they're not anybody to fear.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And now
um,
you're perfectly comfortable standing on a rattlesnake den and feeding them water
give,
from
giving
inches.
them water and taking pictures,
Mhm.
close up
Yeah,
and again respecting them for who they are
yeah.
and when they do rattle a little, I back up. But I don't run away and they
Yeah.
don't run away. And that was another epiphany is that their fear seems to to reflect the situation. And if I do something fearful, like move too quickly, they let me know.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think learning about them and having the experience with somebody who knows who's comfortable made all the difference.
Yeah, and I think now if they rattle and you back up, my guess is that that you back up because you're frightened them and you don't want to, rather than because you think they're going to do something.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a little of both. It's like if I stay there, they've just warned me that they don't want me that close. And so I
Mhm.
don't want them uncomfortable and I don't want to frighten them into doing something. So it's for everybody's safety.
Yeah,
Um, and I'll say something else. I think that that experience, I was not a fan of snakes, period. That was not a group of critters that I loved learning about or wanted to be around. And sort of getting over that hump all of a sudden opened my eyes to the fact that there's all sorts of interesting, cool snakes that were in the area. And I had no fear of holding them, except that I didn't know quite how how to hold them. But once I learned how to hold them and how not to drop them or squish them, um, then I got comfortable with that too. And
yeah,
so it's
yeah,
like that one experience opened up a world of new opportunities that I wouldn't have expected
yeah,
myself to enjoy.
yeah. And
Um,
the opportunities to help them, and I'll just toss in here
yeah,
for the sake of anyone listening, neither of us handles them for fun. They have zero interest in being handled, or interacting with us, the ones in the wild. There is no, captive ones are different. And yeah, holding captive ones is a whole different thing. But neither of us handles wild rattlesnakes for fun because they're not interested in that. But because Heidi is now comfortable handling snakes, she has actually helped me rescue snakes. And I know that if I had to, I could say, here, well, if she was on my coast still, I could say, here, can you hold this gophy snake for a second while I get this rattlesnake, and then we'll get them both off the road. So,
yeah,
so opened up opportunities for rescue.
yeah. I even rescued a gopher snake on my own.
You did.
I did.
That
I'm
was
so proud of
amazing.
myself.
Yeah, cool. It was
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So what have I guess it doesn't have to be things you fear, but
No.
um, how about you?
Well, I got into VR because of virtual reality because I wanted to be able to go on beaches when I didn't have
Mm,
beaches, into woods when I didn't have woods, and no intention whatsoever of doing anything social in there. Um, but once I was in VR, I met some people, and amongst them was a man who has since become a very close friend and in some ways a mentor. I respect him. He's somebody that I will go to for life advice. Love him to death. While he has since become, he was Buddhist at the time and a teacher. He has since become an ordained Buddhist teacher, a Dharmacharya, as they call them. I had no interest in Buddhism. I thought it was a religion. I know better now. Um, but he gave weekly talks, and he also did meditations, and I had no interest in meditations. Meditation makes my brain go crazy. But I really, really came to respect this man. And I started to go to his weekly talks. But I could say honestly that even before I started to go to his weekly talks, I was learning from him. And I learned about things, growing up with ADD. You get taught. You get taught that you're stupid. You get taught that you're just lazy. You get taught that if you would just try harder, you could do the things that your brain can't do. And you internalize that, and you get to the point where, if you do anything, if you forget your keys, you do anything like that, you just hear everybody's voices in your head telling you you're stupid, you're lazy, how could you do that again? And my friend Kiyoki taught me about the principle of the second arrow. The first arrow is inevitable. It's the stuff that happens to you, and you can't go through life without stuff happening. Sometimes you're going to forget your keys. Sometimes bad things are going to happen to you. And the second arrow is the arrow that you shoot at yourself. So a question that he asked, and quoting from Buddhist literature, was, if the universe shoots you with an arrow, are you going to tend the wound, or are you going to shoot yourself with another arrow in the same spot? So he taught me to break the second arrow and throw it away. So yeah, a bad thing happened, but I don't have to say, gosh, I'm so stupid. I always do that. I don't have to say, oh, that toe hurts. Oh, I wonder if I have cancer of the toes, because, I knew somebody years ago that got, maybe this pain is cancer. And oh no, you don't have to do that. You don't have to tell yourself scary stories, and you don't have to call yourself names. So that's the first thing I learned from him. And I would never have ever gone to a Buddhist meditation session. Yeah. And eventually
Yeah.
I introduced my sister to him because he was such a cool guy.
Yeah, and I can remember kind of thinking the same thing. I don't tried meditation, I don't like it. And I remember you telling about VR, and that's in particular, it sounds intriguing, but it just I wasn't in a position to have a whole lot of time to do things like that. And but you kept pushing about the meditation, and finally I was like, okay, it sounds good. So I at least was going in to try it. And I actually didn't have goggles at the beginning. I just got on my computer and joined that way. And I can remember the um, the topic, what I think anyway, was right now it's like this, and that was I think a Buddhist principle, maybe said differently, but I can remember I was in a spot in life where there was a lot of change. I had moved from the West Coast to the East Coast to help my mom and my brother, and I was unsure of whether I was going to stay or go back. And then I was coming back and COVID hit. And so there was a lot of anxiety in my life and uncertainty, and going in there and hearing him talking about, right now it's like this. Yesterday it wasn't like that necessarily. Tomorrow it may not be like this, but right now these are the circumstances that you're in, and this is all you got to deal with. Just don't worry about anything else. And it was kind of a mindfulness principle. And for me, that phrase became kind of like a mantra for me when I would get stressed out about trying to make a decision about something. I would just, or even getting, frustrated or angry or something. I would just remind myself, well, right now it's like this. And it just kind of provided a lot of mental relief. Um, and also because of that, I ended up continuing to go to the sessions, and I learned more about um, Buddhist principles, and so many of them are very helpful. And so I really enjoyed it, and yeah, and I've come to respect him, and would I don't know him well enough to call him a close friend, but I certainly know that I could go to him if I needed to.
Yeah, yeah. And actually, if our listeners would like to hear that voice that changed us, you can go to reverendgeorgebeecher.com and go down to his podcasts. The podcasts are just the recordings of his weekly talks that I still go to. And just a little teaser, we didn't want to bring him in so early yet, but he has indicated that he might be willing to talk to us one day.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, you might actually be able to meet him one of these days on the podcast.
that'll be fun. I can't wait.
It'll be amazing.
Well, speaking of other people that have had big impacts actually on both of us, um, actually I'll start because I think I get into it first. So
You
I
did.
was getting together with a couple of content creator friends of mine. Two of them were doing this Wednesday night thing where you would go, and the guy who ran the sessions, and he called it Toastmasters on steroids at the time, would just throw you a quote, just some random quote that he found online, and you had to just talk off the cuff for 45 seconds. And my friends were saying, this is just, it's such a powerful thing. It's so great. And I remember telling them, that's petrifying. I can't imagine doing that. And so they said, well, you should come then. I was like, what do you mean I should come? So after a couple of weeks, I went, and it was petrifying. And I can remember being very nervous the first time, but I survived it. I did learn that public speaking doesn't lead to death immediately. And I went a couple more times, and I could feel myself getting better. And in these sessions, you get critiqued, you get great feedback. And so I ended up spending money and going and taking a full 8 week class. And it's just opened up a world of comfort level in situations that I would never have been comfortable in, a network of people who are available to me for input, critique, just networking. Um, and then at the final, you had to give a final, which was a 5 minute speech. At the end of it, the guy, and the guy is Anthony Michael Russo. I just mentioned that, Double Down Speaking.
Yeah. Can you say that
He would
again? Who's
ask,
that?
yeah, that was Anthony Michael Russo.
Anthony
Yeah.
Michael Russo.
Yep.
Double Down
Yeah.
Speaking, right? Yeah,
Double
yeah.
Down Speaking. Yeah. Um, he asked each of us what we had gotten out of the class, and the class was supposed to be on finding your voice and finding your story. And in my case, it was like an 8 week therapy session, and we joked that he and I cried every week for some reason, and it was his fault. But but I remember talking about how much of an impact it had on me personally and emotionally, psychologically, and it wasn't just the voice. And my sister Rattles uh, was watching, and afterwards she said, "What do you think? Should I do it?" And I'll pass the baton to you. I just passed the baton to you.
Sorry, actually, my Zoom froze briefly.
Oh, weird. Okay.
Oh, so yeah, no, Heidi been telling me about this, and I was saying, oh, hell no, that is not for me. I am so petrified. No, let me rephrase that. I was so petrified of public speaking that at the last time I attempted it, a doctor approached me afterwards because he was concerned that I might not be all right after it. So yeah, I was not immediately open to the Wednesdays, and in fact, Heidi convinced me to go, and I hated the first one. It was terrible. Anthony, that would be Anthony Michael Russo of Double
I've
Down
doubled down
Speaking,
speaking.
coached me one sentence at a time. I got one sentence and I said, I'm sorry, I shouldn't be here. This isn't I'm sorry, but, and he said, no, try it again. Let's get one. And he led me through about 5 sentences, one sentence at a time. And I didn't leave because it would have been rude, but I was never, ever, ever going to do that again. And the next week, I was thinking about how I've been looking for change in my life. And I remembered how Einstein said that the definition of insanity was doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And I thought, yeah, I've been doing the same thing my whole life. And maybe if I want a different result, maybe I need to change something. So I said, I'm going back. And I did. And then Heidi tried to convince me to take the full 8-week class. And I said, no, because I know those classes don't help. I've done classes before and it's expensive. And, I don't want to put that kind of money into just another class and fail again. And, but I thought about it and I said, okay, maybe I could do the class, but I can't do the 5-minute thing at the end. That's not happening. She pointed out that I was an adult and that if at the end of the class I didn't want to go do the 5-minute thing, I could just not go do the 5-minute thing. And that I would be the one paying for it. So the instructor really couldn't do anything about it if I didn't. And while I was trying to work up the courage, my sister called me and said, don't be mad. I just paid for the course and you're in it. Like, okay, alrighty then. But I'm still not doing the 5-minute thing. And when it came time for the 5-minute thing, the night before the 5-minute thing, I found myself glancing over my notes and saying, yeah, I think I got this. It's all good. It's all good. And absolutely changed everything. Here I am trying to start a podcast. Never would have done it. It's opened doors. It's opened, as Heidi said, networking opportunities. Huge changes in my ability to interact with people. Yeah, just general confidence.
Yeah.
And
Next, can I toss in about the fact that you're finishing up a master's program?
oh yeah, wasn't going to do that either. That was scary. Yep, and I'll be graduating
Yeah.
in June.
And
Yep.
I remember you debating about whether or not you could, because you assumed that you'd have to defend your thesis in a public speaking
Yeah.
setting.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, I mean, having similar conversations
Mhm.
and debating it and the fact that this 8-week course has just made it, I'm putting words in your mouth, but
Yeah.
has made it more comfortable for you to do the group work and the all that kind of
Hmm.
stuff.
Oh yeah, I had to give a presentation in a class. I didn't even think about it. I was like, yeah, it's just a 5-minute presentation. I can do that. Been there,
Yeah,
done that. I was
yeah,
not even, I was a little nervous about it. I think everybody's going to be a little bit nervous about how it's going to go that time. But I wasn't freaked out by the fact that it was a presentation. I was just concerned about how well I would do.
yeah,
So where are we going with all this? I mean, it seems like where I was thinking, where it's got me thinking is that we're also afraid of doing new things. We're also afraid of talking to people that disagree with us. It was like we can, but what would we have missed out on if we never talked to anybody who didn't agree with us? What would we miss out on if we didn't go try that cool thing? What would I have missed out on
yeah.
if I had said, I don't know if I can go. I've never been living in the wilderness for 3 months at a time
Mhm.
on a fire tower. I don't know. It's
Yeah,
different, but I did it and it was the best thing, it was the best time of my life.
yeah.
So,
And it's
uh,
a ripple effect.
yeah,
It's a ripple effect, and I think that when you do the one, for each new thing that you try, or each new person that you dare to talk to, or each new event that you do, it there's a ripple effect in your own life. And
yeah.
so, like in this, I would never have dreamt that we would be doing a podcast, a year ago. And now it's it's been kind of fun doing this thing.
It is. Yeah.
And it's opened up a different world of people and
Mhm.
networking opportunities and things. And um, I look like it, um, like even with my German stuff, it's like that going to Germany as an exchange student, led me to meet people that I wouldn't have met, um, and collaborate with. And because I think the the benefits are far beyond whatever you might expect from the single experience.
Yeah. And beyond our own lives as well, who do we affect?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I remember the first time since we had rattlesnakes in this episode already, the first time I picked one up, um, I didn't know how to pick them up. I wasn't terribly afraid. I wasn't afraid of them. I actually liked them, but I was used to just kind of scooting them off the road, and I had to learn to pick them up because that was the fastest way to rescue one. And the person who was with me was comfortable, and I had a little foldable hook in my hand, and I said, okay, how do I do this? And she said, slide the front end under the first, like about the third of the way down. And I said, okay, I got that. And she says, okay, now just pick them up in your other hand. And I went, say what? Do what now? She's like, yep, just scoop him up in your other hand. And I said, all right. And I scooped him up, and his little tail came up and wound around my fingers, and it felt like a newborn baby clinging to my finger. And I said, okay, and I walked him off, and we were good. But because of that, I've changed so many minds. I've saved literally thousands of rattlesnakes, and I've changed one man who said he shot every rattlesnake he saw. And the last time I talked to him was a phone call where he said, so I found another little rattlesnake on my property, and I have him in a bucket, but I did put a little blanket down for him so he won't be cold on the cold plastic. But I wonder if you had time to come pick him up because I don't have time to run him up the hill. It's like, so how many people did he change? I have no idea.
Right. Right.
Um, you know,
Yeah.
and
It,
how are we going to change if we're open to listening to things that that our brain kind of says, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. That's on the other side of the political spectrum.
mhm,
That person doesn't think like me. You
yeah,
know, what am I going to learn if I listen to that person and learn how they think and why they think?
mhm,
And what are we
yeah,
going to do together when we decide we can do something together after all?
yeah. And my other half is further along the continuum, the political continuum than I am. So we have many different opinions on things. And instead of saying, can you believe that? We ask, well, why is it that you believe that? And we've had great conversations and we've learned about different resources and just that experience having conversations opens the door to having more conversations about it and more questions answered and fewer assumptions and yeah.
Mark Bowden, famous behaviorist who has worked with G7 leaders and trains them, one of the things he talks about is why we should be inauthentic with people. And he says, if you're your authentic self, your brain is programmed to put people in a threat, a friend. Uh-oh, did I lose Mark's other one? A threat? Oh, a potential partner, potential romantic partner, or you're indifferent. And your brain is programmed to put, he says, most people into the category of indifferent. You're naturally indifferent to them. And so he has a whole TED talk on how we need to set aside our brain's natural tendency to be indifferent. And if we have to pretend for a little while in order to get to know that person, we don't know, that person might have the next best idea. We might together come up with the next best idea, and we're never going to know
Yeah.
unless we are willing to set aside what we necessarily want to do in the moment and be open to something a little bit different.
I think that sounds like a perfect ending.
Pretty close, if I do say so
Okay,
myself.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So we'll have to come up with a good topic for next time. So if the listeners have any suggestions, you can always put them in the comments.
All right.
Yeah.
Don't flip the
So
light off. You did that last time and it was rude.
I know you somehow think that flipping things off is a bad thing. I don't understand it.
Kind of
So
is,
do
yeah.
I, so do I
Kind of is.
push it off? Do
No,
I flick it off?
just don't sound
Do
don't
I
snuff it.
blow it
That
off?
doesn't sound good because we don't want to have snuff films. Yeah.
Okay, the light's going off.
Yeah, we're gonna switch it off. We're gonna switch it off.
Switch it off. Okay.
All right.
We'll
We'll switch
switch
the
it.
light off and go inside.
Alrighty.
All right.
So see you next time.
Later, guys.